The DARPA Robotics Challenge is about human beings and robots working together to address disasters. But human beings during disasters have difficulty communicating with each other, and we expect they'd have difficulty communicating with robots as well. So we've emulated that difficulty like a really bad cell phone call. And so when the humans and the robots are trying to talk to each other, they only really get to talk a few times per minute, and the rest of the time, the channel's dead. The robot begins our challenge inside of a utility vehicle. That utility vehicle is far away, around 200 feet away from our course, and the robot is placed in that vehicle by people. In order to score the first point, it has to drive that utility vehicle through a slalom course to get all the way to the end, and if they're successful, they get a point for doing that. The team then next has to do something called Egress. This is actually the hardest part of the challenge, where the robot tries to get out of the vehicle and onto the ground without falling. So here we go. Pretty easy, huh? Well, for a robot, it's much more difficult. The third task of the DARPA Robotics Challenge is the door. So it goes to the door, turns the handle like this, and opens it. Having gotten into the building and done the door task, now communications gets much, much worse. And even though the robot is in very sporadic communication with the operator, it needs to go ahead and do the first of the indoor tasks, and that's the valve task. Over here, the robot faces an industrial valve. There is a simulated disaster going on, so just like at Fukushima where valves needed to be vented, it needs to turn this valve and do some venting. If they manage to do that, they get another point. Once they're done with the valve task, they come over here. The robot needs to walk over to cutting the hole in the wall task. And inside of this frame right here is going to be a section of drywall, and over on these shelves over here will be a set of tools. One's a high-speed wall cutting tool, the other one's a low-speed drill. The robot gets to choose whichever one it uses and use this tool, which was meant for human beings, to cut the hole in the wall and make sure that the entire section that we've marked has been cut out. Having done that, it puts the tools back down and then goes on to the surprise task. Over here we have a box, but this box is not necessarily what's going to be here, and if you'll notice inside the box, there's nothing. So on each of the 3 days, the rehearsal day, the contest day 1, and contest day 2, we're going to put a different kind of task in here for the teams to do. It will be a surprise to them, and they'll have to adapt to whatever it is. After the surprise task comes the terrain task, and that's one where they have to go over rubble. And so they have 2 ways of doing that. One is to go over the rough terrain part of the course where there's different angled ground for their feet, and the other part is to move debris out of the way so that they can walk on smooth ground, but that requires manipulation in order to pick up and move all of the debris. Having gone through one or the other of those 2 paths, it then has to do the very final part, which is to climb up a set of stairs. The robot exits the building, communications gets much better, and now it needs to ascend a set of industrial stairs without falling down. Let's see whether I can do it. Pretty easy for you and me, but very, very hard for a robot that's in sporadic communication with its human operator. And the robots only have an hour to do the whole thing. If they manage to do well, the top 3 teams are going to be eligible for first, second, and third place prizes. The first place prize is $2 million, the second place prize is $1 million, and the third place prize is $500,000. But even more than the money, the most important thing that's going on here is we're advancing technology that can help make society more robust to disasters. And that's very important for everyone.